8:34 a.m. on this incredible January the 7th, 2025. Happy New Year and welcome to winter. And as usual, we're going to start with our chaplain prayer and pledges. And today we have Chaplain Art Mavrodi. Welcome.
Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, we come before you this morning in humility and in faith. We thank you for all that you have given us and the many things in our lives that we cherish. We ask for your guidance and strength as our leaders conduct the business of our community. Show each gathered here the way and fill them with courage and wisdom. Help us to remember your love and grace and be faithful in our service to you. And give us the patience and understanding to face life's challenges with grace and hope. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Today we have one proclamation recognition, which is the School Board Recognition Month. So would all school board members please come forward? As well as Dr. Moran. I think you should be up here too. Didn't mean to eliminate you. The mission of public schools is to meet the diverse educational needs of all children and to empower them to become competent, productive contributors to our society and an ever-changing world. Our San Angelo ISD board members are committed to the children of San Angelo and believe all children can be successful, lifelong learners, and that the best education is tailored to each child's individual needs to support their hopes and dreams. This distinguished group of servant leaders includes Board President Dr. Taylor Kingman, Vice President Mrs. Amy Mazzell Flynn, Secretary Mr. Gerard Gallegos, Treasurer Mr. Bill Dindal, Mrs. Pam Duncan, Dr. Kyle Mills, and Mrs. Lapita Arroyo. San Angelo ISD board members work closely with parents, educational professionals, and other community members to create the educational vision we want for our students. They are responsible for ensuring the structure that provides a solid foundation for our school system and dedicate numerous unpaid personal hours to support and lead our San Angelo schools. Our San Angelo ISD school board members are strong advocates for public education and are responsible for communicating the needs of the school district to the public and the public's expectations to the district. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, declare our appreciation to the members of the San Angelo Independent School Board and proclaim the month of January 2025 as School Board Recognition Month in San Angelo, Texas, and urge all citizens to join us in San Angelo ISD in recognizing the dedication and hard work of the San Angelo ISD school board members and to partner with them to mold an education system that meets the needs of both today's and tomorrow's children and produces future-ready graduates. Dr. Taylor Kingman, would you like to come forward and receive this?
Thank you to the city. Obviously, it's our goal as a group and as a district to provide the best education for kids in this city and be the district that everyone wants to be and help promote this city and this great town. So thank you all for having us and appreciating us today.
Let's get a photograph. That was easy and simple.
Can we get some of those? For city?
No, you don't need, we don't need it.
We will now move into the public comments section of our agenda. Members of the public may raise issues or concerns not listed on the regular agenda during this time. To participate, please sign in with the city clerk prior to the beginning of the meeting. You still have time, right, Heather, if they do it in the next 30 seconds? No. The answer is no. Speakers will be called in the order they signed in. When speaking, citizens must speak from the podium, address all comments to the dais, begin by stating your name and address or single-member district number, and limit their remarks to 3 minutes or less. Do we have public comment today?
Yes, Mayor. Renee Lacey.
Good morning, Council. Renee Lacey, Single Member District 3. I had attempted to volunteer myself for the Animal Crisis Task Force by emailing Mr. Valenzuela on December 3rd, and I CC'd my single member district member as well. So I'll just, I didn't hear back or anything, so I don't even know if you read it, but I'll just go ahead and present it for everybody here. And I said that I was interested in working with multiple people to create and enforce change in our animal crisis issue. To cut straight to my idea, I was suggesting a breeding permit in Tom Green County with citations for unregistered owners that would, I'd assume, be with something like animal services by imposing maybe some kind of online database, creating also a new role for the Animal Service Advising Committee to report and monitor the statistics. This would create better control of the overpopulation crisis, as well as easier tracking and legal enforcement within our county and city. And I realize that there are property legalities issues, but I would presume that an ordinance in our area would allow the enforcement of citations and give law enforcement and the courts proper authority. We would be able to rely on reports from citizens in the area to cite and register litters while deterring breeding or careless ownership and encouraging/enforcing spay and neuter by the owners. I have more ideas to make this possible and effective, and I asked them to reach out to me directly whenever. And I had CC'd Harry Thomas, since I wanted to also say that upon rewatching the most recent Animal Service Advisory Committee meetings and having discussions with local citizens, we believe that there needs to be better establishment of the committee. The committee doesn't seem to know what their objective or capabilities or responsibilities are, and the citizens don't know how to get involved, and this is where we could work with all the animal service organizations to educate and start making constructive changes. Animal services and local law enforcement should be in agreement to tackle this issue with the help of the citizens. And that is all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Burnett.
Good morning, council members, city staff, and fellow community members. I'm Mike Burnett, Single Member District 1, Executive Director of Concho Valley Community Action Agency and Chair of the Homeless Coalition. Would like to speak about the winter weather, how it affects our homeless neighbors, and the upcoming point-in-time count, also known as the pit count. As you know, this week, winter has finally hit, and later this week, we have possible precipitation. Services for those in need during the inclement weather include the Salvation Army Emergency Shelter. Check-in is at 5 p.m. Through 10 p.m. daily. It does fill up. It is first come, first served. They have showers, food, a place to sleep. In non-inclement weather, checkout time is 7 a.m., but they will let folks stay longer during the cold weather, but that depends on the conditions of the day. During the day, there are meals at Russ Street and Trinity Soup Kitchen. Some folks have been finding warmth at the Tom Green County Library. The library has been a great partner in allowing folks to stay there, provided they follow the rules. Their mission is different than most of the other coalition partners, and we want to make sure that we're not overwhelming them at the library. At St. Paul Presbyterian Church, the Oasis Day Shelter is open daily, weekdays starting at 1:30. Individuals get a hot meal and other assistance there. We realize this does leave holes in coverage, and hopefully we can get something figured out to provide more services, especially during the day. Donations of blankets, sheets, food, finances are always welcome at any of the coalition partner agencies. And as you can expect, the coalition agencies' hours of service are limited by available funding to operate. So donations are always welcome. Turning to the point in time count, also known as the pit count, the 2025 pit count will be on Thursday, January 23rd. That day, we also have a homeless navigation day at First Presbyterian Gym. We need volunteers for both, and information can be found at cvcaa.org. The point in time count is more than just a data collection exercise. It's a powerful tool for change. The count provides a snapshot of how many people in our community are experiencing homelessness on a given night. But beyond the numbers, it reveals stories of families, veterans, youth, and individuals who are navigating unimaginable changes. Every person counted represents a life, a story, and hope for a better future. Federal and state resources for housing assistance, shelters, and supportive services are often allocated on these numbers. The pit count holds us accountable as a community. It shows us where we're making progress and where we're falling short. It's a mirror held up to our city, reminding us of our shared responsibility to care for our most vulnerable neighbors. CVCAA and the coalition are working on a much larger plan to address the needs of our homeless neighbors. Later in the spring, we hope to share more about that plan with the public. But we'd like to thank you, the council, the mayor, city manager, and city staff for your continued support of the coalition. Together, we can use this data not just to measure homelessness, but to demonstrate our commitment to compassion, equity, and meaningful change. Thank you.
That was fast.
You made it.
That was a lot. You did good. Well, you kept it running. You did good.
Evelyn Smith.
Morning, Evelyn Smith, SMD 5. And I agree with what the lady said from SMD 3 about the animals situation. I did email each of you in regards to some ideas that I had, because I did attend the last meeting you had about the animal situation. And I don't know if she had this on her report. I heard her say something about that maybe there should be some kind of policy or something where the veterinarians would automatically just, whatever somebody bring in an animal, do it for free, and then they could take that off their taxes, just like a donation, if they would do that. So if we can just handle the situation with keeping them from breeding, at some point, sooner or later, we will have probably less animals on the street, if that's one of the situations. But I end up now, I got like 4 or 5 cats in my area. It started out with one, and then when I called the animal shelter, they're like, we're just going to pick them up, make sure they're spayed, neutered, whatever, and let them back out in your neighborhood. I'm like, I'm trying to get them out of my neighborhood. I don't want them in my neighborhood. One cat jumped on my leg and bit me, but he didn't. It wasn't bad because I had on pants. So this is a city problem. And even people on the highway, on the streets and stuff, I almost hit somebody the other day because they stopped to keep from hitting a dog. So it's causing traffic jams. People are in the neighborhoods are afraid and walk up and down their neighborhoods. So I don't know exactly, just like you are, what all needs to be done, but something needs to be done. There was a fox last year in my mother-in-law's yard. I called them to come get the fox. No, I had to trap the fox myself. They wanted me to pay $25 to get a little cage, trap him, and then they come get him. I'm like, I'm afraid of him. What am I? I don't get paid to do this. I'm afraid. That's why I'm calling you. And so those kind of situations, the lady was very rude when I called her about the cats. I said, well, if I call you to come pick the cats up, what are you going to do? They're going to release them back in the neighborhood. She said that's the policy or law for cats are different than dogs situations. So we do have a real big problem here in San Angelo, and I do what I can to volunteer, but I know it's bigger than me, and I'm just want to impress upon y'all there's something that needs to be done. And I don't know where to start that these veterinarians can do this for free, and maybe that would help a lot with getting all these animals spayed and neutered. Because I see dogs running up and down my street, so should I call them, have them take them over to the veterinarian, have the veterinarian spayed and neutered? He gets a little paper saying he can deduct this off his taxes. So that's just a thought that I had.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Evelyn.
Daniel Valenzuela.
Thank you, ma'am. First of all, I do want to provide an update on the task force that the city council gave directive to kind of move forward with, to move forward with. And I want to start off with really thanking the community because we've gotten plenty of emails, people that are really interested in serving on this committee. Unfortunately, I'm going to limit that committee to 9 individuals. The interest just speaks to me as far as the need for what needs to be done to accomplish the goals that we have. And we do have some specific objectives, and I'm going to kind of list them out real quick. We want to reduce the free roaming dog population, reduce citizen dog bites, increase spay-neuter rates, manage shelter capacity, encourage responsible pet ownership, create and enforce policies and ordinances, and foster collaboration with animal rescue groups. There's a lot that can be done. I have been interviewing different individuals for the possible membership into this committee. As a matter of fact, I want to finalize that list this week. I have more interviews to do this week, ma'am, and I'll look you up as well to make sure that you get a call and you can come in and interview as well. But I want to make sure that we have a good group with the knowledge necessary to make the proposed changes to the city council. And we'll be moving forward. My goal is to have the first meeting next week, no later than the following week, as far as that first meeting. So again, I want to thank the community for that interest and those individuals who have submitted to be on the committee. Thank you for that. But again, it is going to be limited to 9 members, and that list should be finalized by Friday of this week. Thank you.
Thank you for that update.
And then lastly, Mayor, I just want to let citizens know that candidate packets for the upcoming May 3rd, 2025 election are now available. Interested individuals can access the packets online at cosatx.us/elections or pick them up in person at the city clerk's office, 72 West College, Suite 204. Positions on the ballot include mayor and city council member for single-member districts 2, 4, and 6. Completed applications will be accepted starting January 15th and must be submitted no later than 5 p.m. on February 14th. The last day for citizens to register to vote is April 3rd. And any additional information or questions, you can call the city clerk's office at 657-4405. Thank you.
You want to clarify those 2 issues. One is the last day for actually filling out the documentation to run. That's one issue. And then second, there's an issue in terms of when citizens can register to vote
Yes.
in that election.
Correct.
So just make sure we clarify the difference between the February date and the April date.
Yes, the February 14th date is the last day an individual can file for a place on the ballot. And April 3rd is the last day for a citizen to register to vote in the May election.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Okay.
May I just say something
Yes,
very quickly?
please.
I just want to make sure that everyone keep Larry Miller in your thoughts and prayers. He's undergoing another surgery. He's doing quite well. He's in good spirits. But I just want to make sure that you keep him in your thoughts and prayers as well. Thank you.
Thank you. We will move on to the consent agenda of the agenda. And to start with, we are going to pull item C and item E, so they will not be discussed today. They will be discussed at a future time period. And so I'm going to start with, Tommy, is there any other item you would like to pull for consideration and conversation?
No, ma'am.
Tom?
No, ma'am.
Harry?
No, ma'am.
Lucy?
No, ma'am.
Karen? With that, I will ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of items C and items E. May I have that motion?
Motion to approve?
Is
with the exception
second by
of C
Lucy.
and E.
Public comment concerning the agenda items with the exception of C and E. Seeing none, we will take, or hearing that there are none listed to do that, we will take a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. The consent agenda, with the exception of item C and item E, has been approved by a vote of 6-0. We will now move into the regular agenda. Comments regarding items on the regular agenda may be made by the public when each item is discussed as outlined above. To participate, please sign in with the city clerk prior to the beginning of the meeting. Speakers will be called in the order they signed in. Comments are limited to less than 3 minutes. Applicants, proponents, and appellants are exempt from the time limit above and instead must limit their remarks to less than 5 minutes. Item A is consider approving Tiers incentive requests for the following items. 1, North Tiers private project creating a duplex in RM-1 located at 215 West 19th Street totaling $75,000. 2, North Tiers private project creating 2 retail locations located at 2401 North Chadbourne Street totaling $75,000. And that is the first item for discussion today.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Aaron Benoit, Director of Planning and Development Services. That's on, I apologize. Aaron Benoit, Director of Planning and Development Services. So we have 2 Tiers North projects in front of us this morning for incentives. The first one here is at 215 West 19th. This is a property that you have seen before that they've gone through a rezoning. In fact, with the consent agenda today, they have secured their RM1 zoning for low-rise multifamily. Currently, they're going to start with this lot right here, where they're going to demo a current structure that was very close to being on the dangerous building list and going to demo that and replace it with a duplex. So looking at the tiers criteria, you can see that we put together here on our slide for this case that this promotes a mixed-use development. We have commercial areas over here on the western side of MLK. We have some multifamily in some areas just along. We have single family over in this area. And then, of course, as you go to Chadbourne to the east, there's continued more commercial development. Part of the Tiers funding is going to help create some more pedestrian infrastructure. So as you can see, their property is right here. We do have that great sidewalk that's on MLK that's been created in the past, and they're going to create the sidewalk that comes along through here and create a ADA ramp so that they can utilize that. This also helps eliminate some undesirable views as they're going to move forward and continue to demo some of those older structures. And they do have an aggressive match by the applicant. And this is in our high priority of housing, creating housing in our Tiers area. And since it is RM1 zoning, not single-family zoning, being an RS or an RS2 or 3, it is eligible for Tiers funding. And so that's the key criteria, is that it is an RM1 project. So this is in District 4, Ms. Lucy Gonzalez in the Reagan neighborhood. Here you can see both of those projects that are requesting the $75,000. We'll talk more details on 2401 North Chadbourne in just a moment. So the total request between the two is $150,000 out of the $2.8 million that are in the Tiers North currently. So here's that funding request for 19th Street. They do have a $75,000 request. Part of that is going to be for streetscape, which also includes that pedestrian. They're also going to include some landscaping. And so we're going to evaluate that when they turn in their site plan for landscaping. There's the possibility, depending on what they provide, but maybe we get a couple of street trees or something like that to help out the aesthetics of the area. They are proposing that their match is going to be up to $150,000 to $200,000, depending on how much it costs for this duplex to build. That always is contingent on labor costs, material costs. But the $75,000 is going to help, and so we're projecting a match of $125,000. So it is very significant. The Tiers dollars will help with the facade of the structure, help with landscaping and the sidewalks and improvements in that area, and it will create a new duplex. As you saw back on this slide right here, they do have a number of properties there. If they're successful with this one, they propose to move forward with some other projects in that area. All of it is zoned RM1 now, and so depending on structure types and what they bring forward, they may request more Tiers funding in the future, and that will be up for consideration at those times. So here you can see that they're just right inside the Tiers boundary. Again, that's the property that they're looking at today. Here's some of the street views of structures that are there. Some of the area, you can see the commercial area to the north and to the west. Some of the areas along 19th Street that still need some work. They're still working on their rendering, but this is their idea at the time. Again, a traditional duplex that they're going to have side by side, be a two-story with a garage front. I think that will help improve the area and continue to develop the area as infill projects come along, as well as continue to keep MLK very vibrant. With that, Mayor, I'm going to ask, do you want to discuss this project, or would you like me to move on to the next funded item?
Well, they're listed as separate items, so, but on the other hand, yeah, let's make a vote. Let's take a vote on item A1 first and then move on to A2.
So let me get to staff's recommendation is to fund the $75,000 for the 215 West 19th Street. This did go to the Tiers Board in December, and Tiers Board did recommend approval with a 6-0 vote for the 215 West 19th project.
Lucy, would you like to add comment?
Just a comment that I'm totally for this, and I'm so glad to see that that area, slowly but surely, we're coming along and making it look really nice. So definitely approve as presented.
Is there another comment?
Got a question?
Yes, please.
So this will be a taxable property, so
That is their intent, yes. This is
It's not their intent, it is what it is.
Yes.
it will be
There's
taxable
no
property.
intent here.
Yes,
We
ma'am.
saw what it is.
Yes, ma'am. And they plan to rent it out. They may even do some short-term rentals. They were actually in discussion with Shannon of possibly doing it for nursing that may come in. They may do it for different times of the year, but it is going to be a rental property. It will be a taxable property.
Okay, my second question, when we went back to the zone change, was there any objections by neighboring lots? to
No,
this?
there was not.
Okay, cool, I'm good.
Did we have a second, Mayor?
I need a second.
Second.
With that, is there, okay, so I have a motion and a second. Your second.
No, she wants
I
to
have a
comment.
comment.
That's good.
Or a question.
Well, let's just open it up for more comment. Karen?
I noticed in our packets that the applicant's submission for this project was exceptionally good. And I would just like to state that I really personally appreciated the quality of that application. It was very compelling in that format. And I have a general question about tiers, and I'll hold that till the end, I think. But
Okay.
gratitude to that client for that good work.
I have some comments I'm going to add to it at the end, because I think there needs to be some thought process going into this based off of what Tiers is allowed to do or not do. And I think we were a little narrow in our perspective in terms of what they could have asked for, maybe should have asked for, and maybe what the Tiers Board could have recommended to help the project move along. And it is a taxable project, so there's options there. And I'll discuss that in a moment. So there's a motion and a second. No further public comment, and may we take a vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. Going on to number 2.
Yes, ma'am. This is 2401 North Chadbourne. It is a commercial property on the west side of Chadbourne, right here. As you guys have seen this many times driving along Chadbourne, I think it used to have a sign that said Monte Carlo. It's been vacant for a while. The proposal is to create 2 retail spaces out of that. They're going to take the front facade off, that little portico area where the entryway is, take that off, go back to the original facade, and bring an awning over the top of it, and I've got an image that will show that in just a moment. They're not exactly sure. They've got one tenant that they're ready to bring in to lease to, but they're not quite sure about the second tenant. It is going to promote mixed-use development. You can see this is the area that's got some residential behind it. This area right behind it, we just rezoned in the last couple of months to RM1, so there is potential for some low-rise multifamily to come in behind it. They are going to improve the pedestrian and vehicle infrastructure, and you'll see on an image in just a moment They proposed initially some parking in front of the building that would back out on Chadbourne. We have talked with them and discussed with them that's not the safest idea, as Chadbourne is a heavily trafficked street. And so they're going to curb that and create a sidewalk there, put the parking over here on the north parking lot. And that's going to help that vehicular infrastructure and the pedestrian stuff. It is going to eliminate an undesirable view. They're going to refresh the facade, make that building much more viable. And it is a high priority for building aesthetics and facade improvements. This is in District 4, Miss Lucy Gonzalez, and in the Reagan neighborhood. So their funding request is $75,000. Their proposed budget cost is $130,000. And if you see, the match is only $13,000, and I put there that's qualified tiers improvements. They plan on doing a lot of stuff inside, and there's some additional program costs that are involved there, but those don't qualify as tiers match. And there are things that have to be tiers match qualified, and so that's why you see the difference there.
Is there any ADA issues there?
They are, and with the sidewalk, they are going to be improving that to allow ADA access from the parking lot to the building as well as along the sidewalk. If there's something in the building that needs to be ADA improved, they will be allowed to count that as part of their match if necessary. At this time, we haven't seen the floor plan quite yet to see if the bathrooms need to be upgraded or not and what occupancy would be, but we have that ability, and within that
What would your guess
75,000.
be? How old is the building?
I would say it's probably from the 40s or 50s.
So do you think maybe if it's in the 40s and 50s, there might be some ADA issues inside there?
It could be. It all depends on what their level of reconstruction is. If they don't touch it, they don't have to fix it, but if they do touch portions of it, they would have to bring it up to compliance with the state. So the summary of work is exterior doors, stucco replacement, awning, and signage improvements. And so here's just some of the pictures that you can see. And you can see right here, here's that little front entryway that they're going to be removing. Again, from the north side view. And then here's what it's going to turn into, which I really like the design. Again, this parking at the front, they're going to move that over here to the side. They are going to be allowed to have some parking over on this street, as it's not as a heavily trafficked street. We will encourage them to be further down just a little bit from the corner so that there's not any sight issues, and backing out is not a major issue. But they're going to put the ADA area over here. They will curb this off along the street and add a sidewalk along the street for connectivity. But I do like the design. It is going to be a refresh. They are adding some stonework and some stucco to the building. They are creating the separate doors, and I really like the awning that's coming in. That does reflect a lot of our town's buildings, and so we really do like that coming forward as their presentation. Again, you did approve the first project, so the second project, $75,000. Out of that 2.8, that will bring the fund down to the 2.7. And with that, the 2401 North Chadbourne was recommended at the $75,000 by staff, as well as Tiers Board recommended approval with a 6-0 vote.
Lucy, comment, please.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Like I said before, that area needs to start coming alive and starting looking really nice. And the fact that you said how old that building is shows how neglected North Chadbourne has been for so many years. So I am glad to see that people are actually interested in wanting to bring it back to life. So for that reason, I definitely approve as
Is that a
presented.
motion?
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry, motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Karen. Any public comment, including from Councilmember Tom?
Aaron, so my question is, when people get their tiers funding, and so I'm going to bring up some properties we had on 29th Street in Chadbourne. Maybe they aren't aware, some of them do this with that as part of their budget. They don't understand what they have to complete before they can come get their reimbursement. Are we being clear with them on what needs to be done before you can get your $75,000? Although there may be other things they have to do to completion. Those questions I have got, and it's complicated.
Those people want to get those money to help decrease their payments, their interest, everything, but they don't understand when or what they have to complete in a process or chronological order to get their funding. Are we just clear with them on that? Like, here's what you can complete, and then you can come get your reimbursement versus, total completion before getting the reimbursement.
I believe we are in general. I do think we could be much more specific at times. I do think there are times that we need to certainly be in touch with those projects while they're going through the projects to make sure they're hitting some benchmarks. As you know, we've had kind of a transition over the last year to year and a half to where downtown San Angelo, who's done a great job, and you can see how many projects are coming forward of marketing, getting this out there. Our internal staff has done a great job of working with those applicants when they come in, getting through the application and getting the information. And now really our next steps are we being clear to, you must finish this stage before you're eligible for reimbursement? And so that it's very, very clear to them, because it is a decision they have to make of, okay, can I afford to front this and then I'm going to get my reimbursement at the end? And so I think we can be much more clear with that with applicants, and I think that's a goal that we need to focus on to continue to work with them and make sure they understand what the rules are. While, yes, we have it in writing and in our policies, that doesn't mean everybody understands what that means, and so I think we can do a better job of that.
I think what I'm referencing here, and you're aware well of it, I just need other council members to understand. Some people had done some tiers projects that required very little structure before they got their money back. Another one came through and they just weren't sure and they didn't understand what they had to do that second time around. Other qualifications and what needed for requirements before their payment. I think 90% of the phone calls I get are, I thought I was eligible for it, I went in, I wasn't eligible, I wasn't aware of this, I tried to pull that. But if you've done all that up front, we're all good to go.
Maybe we should create a list of top 5 issues. Number 1, you must do this in chronological order. These things must happen in this sequence, because most people aren't going to read a 30-page document to figure out what they need to do or not do. They're just not.
That's correct, and I think that's a great suggestion.
We need to provide them, here's the steps you take.
Yeah.
Step 1 to step 10 if you have to. But we must provide them with the list of steps they must take, so no one gets halfway into the project and figure out they don't have the money, the project's got to stop because the dollars aren't there, and then we lost the opportunity to complete the project. So we need to be clear with them, the rules, if you will, the expectations, if you will.
Yes, ma'am, I agree with that, and we have been encouraging more of them to come to a pre-development meeting to involve our pre-development team members in case, because sometimes it's unknown whether it may trigger, say, a building permit, or it may trigger something with the fire prevention team, or it may trigger something with health or whatever. And the sooner we can get those people in front of those applicants, the better. And so we are encouraging that, because they may be doing just a simple facade, and then they get behind the facade and realize there's some structural stuff, and that triggers a whole different level of things.
Wood or
Yes,
things
ma'am.
that need to be
Some
replaced.
of it should clear up too. As Aaron mentioned, downtown San Angelo started helping us do this. And so part of that process was also educating them on exactly what all this is. So they have been working with downtown San Angelo to make sure they can answer those questions. If they can't, we're always available. Just, send them to us. But I think you'll see that process getting better, because downtown San Angelo is understanding exactly a lot better. And they've come up with great ideas for marketing and so forth. But you'll see that aspect being better as well with them.
But I
we do
think it
have
needs to be the list. Before you can get your money,
Yes, ma'am.
what has to happen?
And we do have a couple of meetings scheduled with some of our applicants that have received funding to find a way forward for them so they can get that funding.
Okay. So with that, any further comment?
No, ma'am?
We'll take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to item B, discussion and possible action of North Tiers nonprofit policy update. You're on, Aaron.
Thank you, Mayor. So as many of y'all recall, there's been kind of a discussion back and forth of nonprofit policy for our North Tiers. In our South Tiers, the policy is very straightforward. There are no applicants from a nonprofit organization eligible for Tiers funding in our South. In our north, it's fairly open. It says applicants are eligible to apply. There was a case, and I want to say it's about 18 to 24 months ago, that came forward from a church. Tiers Board recommended funding, came to City Council. The recommendation was not to fund it, which is y'all's purview to do. And so through some of those conversations of, well, should we set up a criteria specifically for nonprofits, the Tiers Board did want to do that. And so over the last year, I've been providing them data of what that could look like and what that could mean. And so that's what we have this morning, is a proposal from the Tiers Board to revise the nonprofit policy for the North Tiers Board. Now, before I get into those, I think we really have three options here. We have the option of keeping it the same. We have the option of taking nonprofit off the board for the North Tiers, or we have something in between, which could be this, what's proposed, or something with modifications that are proposed by you guys as the City Council. So right now, again, the policy has allowed the nonprofit participation in the North. 2 projects have had applications. Only one made it to the Tiers Board. The other project, they decided to pull their project. No nonprofits have been awarded funding other than a government agency. There is a desire by the nonprofit community to participate in the Tiers program. We hear that often at our Tiers Board, and sometimes through citizens that will call to the city staff. City staff have researched the program and others around the state, and really there's not many around the state that have any exclusions to nonprofits, but trying to dig into have they given money to nonprofits, it's hard to find if they've actually given money either. And so there's not clear data, to be honest with you. So what we have proposed to the Tiers Board, and what they are bringing forward as a proposal, is a nonprofit set aside, that annually there is a dollar amount set aside. Right now, their proposal is $100,000. There was discussion, we proposed, city staff proposed $75,000, but they decided let's go to the $100,000 because it does cost projects, and if we're asking them to do some kind of public infrastructure, sidewalks or street trees or whatever it may be, that adds cost to their projects. And so their thought was, all right, let's do $100,000, not to exceed that on an annual basis. And it would start the beginning of January and expire December 31st of that same year. So to be eligible to apply, the incentives for the North Zone could have one applicant up to $75,000, which is just like our private applicants currently. Or you could have multiple applicants. You could have multiple nonprofits partner together and could get up to $100,000. And that may make a difference. It may not, because then you have to have some cooperation and you're depending on some other folks. And so that makes a big difference. There was discussion about match, no match, 5%, 10%. Ultimately, it came down to no match for nonprofits. And the payment of the funds would be standard reimbursement process. They would not get funds up front. It would be they'd have to complete the project, and then they would get reimbursed the funds. One of the things that I really like that came forward is the Tiers Board shall make a finding that the project will make a significant neighborhood impact, because I think that's key for our Tiers neighborhoods programs. What is happening with property A that's really impacting the neighborhood? Now, a lot of times we see our private incentives like the 2 before that really the commercial one, well, it might make a huge impact there, but it's also on a corner, and it's probably going to make an impact to more properties on that corner. We know the housing one probably will, because they're looking at developing really a full neighborhood. And so if a nonprofit comes forward, what is that real impact? Is it simply just historic refurbishment? Is it neighborhood enhancement? Is it facade and building improvements to assist with an occupancy load, which a lot of times we think about sprinkler systems just like we would for our private businesses? Or there's an other acceptable impacts determined by the Tiers Board. Now, ultimately, these would still come to you guys to make that decision. Did they make the right finding? Did they make a finding that this really makes an impact in the neighborhood? The other items are, it must include some kind of public improvements, which is including but not limited to public sidewalks, ADA ramps in the right-of-way, transit shelters, streetscaping. We did put a caveat that there are some properties that have that already. And so if they already have that, requiring it again through this makes sense to allow the Tiers Board or City Council to say, okay, let's waive that one. The annual funding does not roll over year to year. So if that 100,000, say if there's $25,000 left, that does not roll over into the nonprofit set aside. That rolls back into the Tiers program for the North for private incentives to be given out through private incentives. It does not roll over year to year. It does not accumulate to a large amount. We did put that currently it's a 3/4 vote by City Council and the Tiers Board to approve those. They have requested to bring forward that it's just a simple majority vote if we have a set aside. So it could just be a simple 3-2 majority vote when not a super majority. Number 7 is that government entities would not be allowed to request funding from the set aside. So that 100,000 would not go towards something that the city has said we need funding for. Now the advantage is the North Tiers has a lot of dollars, but that doesn't always hold true. And so number 7 is one that you have to really consider, is that if there's something the city needs funded that is eligible for tiers, does this limit us in any way in decision-making of where those funds could come? And then the Tiers Board said they would like to set an application window for funding requests so that they would, just like they do in the South Tiers, all right, we're going to open up a window, have the opportunity for nonprofits to apply. If they choose to apply, we bring those forward to the Tiers Board and then ultimately City Council. So all of these, there's no change in the process. They still would apply. They would still go to the Tiers Board. They would look at this evaluation, still use the criteria on how we would rank them within our policies. They would make recommendations. It would come back to City Council, and City Council would then have the ultimate decision to say fund Project A or don't fund Project A. So with that, the staff does recommend the set aside annually described with the outline, with the guidelines, excuse me. The Tiers Board did recommend with an approval of 6-0 vote. We would say it would start in 2025, that we would do the set aside and move forward. I'm sure several of you have questions, and so I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
I've got a lot of statements to make.
Yes, ma'am.
I've spent quite a few hours talking to the comptroller office at the Texas government. And I want to start with tax increment financing, Chapter 311. A Tiers project jumpstarts development to generate, quote, new tax revenue. The benefits of a Tiers include, 1, building needed public infrastructure to draw businesses. 2, boosting development which grows property values and long-term property tax collections. Property tax collections. And lessening the cost of private development by providing reimbursement for qualified public improvements. How does it work? Future tax revenues from each participating taxing unit. The taxing units are what? Defined as the City of San Angelo, the county, and the school districts. Those are taxing units to pay for the cost of improvements to an area. When the improvements result in, quote, additional tax revenue, this revenue is referred to as the tax increment. Each taxing unit determines what percentage of its tax increment, if any, it will commit to repay the cost of the financial improvements. TIF projects or tax increment refinance projects can be used to fund 1, roads, sidewalks, and other public infrastructure. 2, demolition. 3, building facade preservation. 4, remediation of contamination. Affordable housing. Railroad and transit facilities. Public buildings. School buildings and other projects. What public improvements can a city make in a tier zone? We are separating nonprofits versus the city. We cannot lump the city of San Angelo into a nonprofit status equal to all other nonprofits or 501(c)(3)s or other nonprofits. There's a line, and that line is called the City of San Angelo, which is a taxing entity. A city may acquire, construct, reconstruct, or install public works, facilities, or sites of other public improvements, including utilities, streets, streetlights, water and sewer facilities, pedestrian malls and walkways, parks, flood and drainage facilities, and parking facilities. Let me go on to read the following statement. And this is hard to read, so a TIF project jumpstarts development so it can start, quote, generating additional tax revenue for the local government. Local governments that participate in a TIF project make an upfront commitment to creating public improvements. These improvements encourage private investment in the zone, such as new business growth that increases property values and generates new tax revenues. Let's be clear, you cannot loop the city of San Angelo, Texas, into the conversation of all nonprofits. It is a taxing entity. It separates itself from all others. So the fact that you might have given approval to public improvement projects does not open the door for other nonprofit conversations. It's clear. This is on the comptroller's website. If you have any questions about it, go to their website. It clearly defines it. Spent several hours visiting with the people who head up this program in Austin. They were totally confused why there'd even be a conversation about a nonprofit. And the city is a taxing unit. The city agreed, the county agreed, the school agreed to give up the monies that those tax revenues would have generated for them to help create economic development that would encourage private development. The only conversation about a nonprofit receiving money, as in a church, would be if that church building was being remodeled, not to hold church, but to turn it into a venue, and that venue would then receive money. But it cannot be used to redo a church for church services. The city is not in the same box as a church, as a nonprofit. It is not. When the tiers was created, the city couldn't afford to pay the money to create the tier zone. Private money had to be asked for to pay for this tiers fund to even be created. Back then, in downtown San Angelo, 147 empty buildings existed. 47 exist today. And those tax revenues, increase in property values, are what funds continued growth. When we start trying to rewrite what tiers is, because we're defining the city of San Angelo as a nonprofit, just like a church, we're offline. They're not. They're not one and the same. We'll ask for a city's attorney the difference between a nonprofit versus the city of San Angelo, Texas.
the city is a municipality, so it's definitely, I mean, it's technically a home rule municipal corporation, but of course, it's exempt from taxes. It's
But
not
does it receive
classified as a
taxes?
nonprofit.
Does
Yeah,
it receive
absolutely. It's a
taxes?
taxing entity that receives
You
taxes.
got it. And what kind of taxes do they receive?
Property taxes.
You got it.
Sales tax.
Sales tax, right? What do other nonprofits not receive? Sales tax and property tax. Let's be clear. We're trying to muddy the waters to justify an action that someone wants to take. It's clear. It's very clear from the comptroller's office in terms of what the tiers money can be used for. And so when I go back and I look at these two projects that we just approved, one of the things, if we really want development to happen, I would say the following, that in order to help push their projects forward, in order to help them be successful and have monies to develop other projects, that perhaps we should have asked if the city could use some of that money to help do some of that infrastructure, sidewalks, landscaping, so that the private person investing in those projects might have more money to do the work that's needed to do, to get that project in its entirety done.
I think those are all good suggestions.
No, they are on the comptroller's website.
Yes, Mayor.
These aren't suggestions.
If I might add, this is basically a conversation pertaining to the tiers, and council gets to set what that policy is for the tiers and how you want it administered. Currently, it's written in a way that allows certain things and certain things not. One of the things that we were charged with was trying to clear up this issue pertaining to the nonprofits, and so the tiers board sent a recommendation. I actually hear what the mayor's saying, and I don't disagree with the city. You know, I think public projects are important, and this is a way to fund landscaping, street improvements, all those kind of things. One of the controversies has been the nonprofits, not the city, but the other, and whether you exclude the city or not, that's where we need your guidance. So here's a proposal sent. If we want to change the entire tiers policy, you know, what we're doing, we can look at that and bring it back to you, but we need your guidance on what that is. So your points are well taken. If those are areas that we want to adjust, we're happy to do that. So just give us a guidance and we'll go.
We need to be clear on what tiers was created to do. And I want to make sure we don't muddy the water here. And I don't support doing a simple majority vote. It has to be more than a simple majority vote. And furthermore, we've got to make sure we understand what the comptroller defines as projects. When I talked to the gentleman who heads up this program, I had to explain it to him several times. You mean a nonprofit who brings nothing in terms of increased property taxes to the table wants to take advantage of the program? Yes, that's what I'm asking. It
I have
clearly.
a comment, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
I think we all understand what North Tiers was set up and how you need the money being brought in and everything. And the last time we had this conversation, I think a lot of people came up and reminded us what nonprofits actually do for this community, how many people they actually help. And that's my stand, is that as long as these people, these nonprofit organizations are helping the people that are not as fortunate as other people in this community are being helped, I do not see a problem when the North Side has $2-point-something million and take out $100,000 set aside to help. I don't see any problem in it. It is when you feel that, no, this is the way it is, and this is the rules, and we can't. So since the South Side can't do it, North Side shouldn't do it. So I'm just saying that we are not taking into consideration what the nonprofit organizations actually do.
Well, I think we are, and I would remind everyone, guess what? Who pays for the police and fire?
Like I said, I understand what you're saying. I'm just trying to make a point that these non-organizations do help a lot of people in this community.
And they're created to do that. But I also will say that's one of the reasons why they don't pay property taxes, why they don't have to pay sales tax, and why other property owners in the private sector have to pay property taxes and sales tax to fund our police, our fire, and the infrastructure that is required to continue to provide a quality of life for the citizens of San Angelo, Texas. And all taxpayers are putting money into that pot to do that. That's what
And a
we all
lot
are
of
having to
people,
do.
and a lot of people that put money and pay their taxes have family members or relatives that cannot or do not pay property taxes and need help.
This program wasn't created for that purpose.
I understand that.
So it's not created for that purpose, and the comptroller is pretty clear about it.
Yes, I understand that. I was just hoping that the city would be different.
It's governed by the comptroller of the state of Texas. Harry?
Just to be clear, I understand what the mayor has said, what the conversation with the comptroller said. We have not heard the legal opinion from the city, assistant city attorney, acting city attorney. I would say that on this particular item, that we do some additional work on this and bring it back. Today, I think you got people up here that will vote one way or the other, and this may or may not pass, doesn't make any difference. But I think this item today is not clear enough for people to make the decision that they need to make, and I'd like to have some input from the acting city attorney. So that's my input.
Yes, sir, and I would like some time to do some research, but just in what I have done in Chapter 311 that the mayor mentioned, it doesn't say one way or another nonprofit in that chapter. But of course, it does outline the various projects that you can do. And I think part of the nonprofit discussion is that, you know, if you improve a building that may be owned by a nonprofit in a blighted area, you're improving the surrounding area. So I think that's how we justify it in terms of the 311. But again, I'd like to talk to the comptroller and research that further if the council would like that too. So,
Mayor,
Yes.
I will admit, I am the least intelligent of these people at the dais. I fully admit that. I am totally confused, honest to goodness. So to Harry's request, Brandon's request to do some more, I'm not sure this is the time to do it. Maybe it is, but I need a re-education on why TIERS was even created in the beginning by the state that then allowed cities. Again, I am totally confused. So I need to come visit with you, or you need to do it for the whole county. But I'm not prepared to take a vote on this today at all. I'm
The state didn't. We applied to create the tier zone. So the city of San Angelo, the county, and the school district had to come together and decide that they would support the request sent to the comptroller's office to create a tiers. It's generated within our community, the request to do it. They then review the documents, and upon approval of those documents, the tiers program was created. But we generated the request, and you had to get the county to sign off on it, you had to get the school district to sign off on it, because all those three taxing unities, either they tax or they receive funding, had to agree in these areas to give up their tax dollars to go into a fund to help regenerate blighted areas, of which Just in the downtown area alone was 147 empty buildings, and that was in 2006. In 2006, there were 3 businesses open after the hour, 5 o'clock. Blaine's Pub, Fuente's Restaurant, and Miss Hattie's Restaurant. There was nobody else open after the hour, 5 o'clock. You could shoot a gun off the corner of Concho and Chadbourne all the way up to the bus station. You wouldn't hit anybody because there were no cars, no traffic, no anything.
Don't let the chief know that.
Yeah. Sorry, Travis. You're still here. Yeah.
Did the state do something that said this can happen, tiers
Yes,
can happen?
The state enacted legislation that allowed cities to create 2 types of districts, one being a tiers, the other being a TIF. And those are acronyms for things. But I do take your suggestion, as well as the mayor's and others, of maybe we put together a presentation of what is tiers, what did we adopt in back then, and how has our policies changed? Because we are one of the cities that have been very heavy on private incentives as opposed to public projects, although we have spent significant dollars on public projects. You look at South Chadbourne, which has made in my mind, a huge difference on South Chadbourne. And as we bring in the next project that creates that loop that goes through the Tiers district, that goes down 29th and comes back and loops around through the Arroyo area, those are significant public dollars, public improvements that will generate private investment, just as the mayor explained.
Well, the Red Arroyo was not a Tiers project.
Correct, but the way the connections the funding that Patrick secured this year, or this last year through TxDOT, that all is connected for our community.
But you said something very important. I'm going to go back to what you started with, and that was we are one of the few cities that have used the Tiers Fund more for private investment than public infrastructure.
Yes.
One of the few. And you got to remember that, because if you take a look again in terms of what Tiers, tax increment refinance zone, or tax increment finance, one and the same program, different names, most of them are created to make the public improvements to generate economic development in a blighted area.
Yes.
That is the number one reason you create it. And the timing of doing this was very paramount, because there was knowledge that the northern Walmart land had been purchased, but no construction had started. So we were under a window that we had to approve this concept, the Tiers program, before nail and hammer started on that Walmart. Because once the nail and hammer started on the Walmart, then you had to recapture a finished project called the Walmart store. The timing on this was created so that the basis for that property tax valuation was based off of raw land. The dollars were generated once the building was completed. And that is where the revenue to fund the Northern Tiers, or the entire Tiers program, came from, which the council at that point in time made a decision to separate north versus south. But that Walmart facility, and then the rest of that development around there, the strip malls and all that other stuff that was built there, was in fact the increase in property tax values that have funded this dollar amount that we talk about.
Yes, ma'am.
Brenda?
So we'll bring this back.
We're not there yet.
Yeah, wait, Tom.
So this may sound kind of harsh, but it's my opinion, and I will parallel a lot with what Brenda has brought up. We put money into it to be taxable, to get money out for commercial development. I don't think I've seen any nonprofit development commercially that increases our taxes. So all this is an expense. It doesn't help grow the fund. People talk about, well, it revitalizes the neighborhood. Well, if you look at where those nonprofits are, to revitalize some of those buildings is going to be a $250,000, $500,000 thing, and they don't have the population, the attendance to sustain them anyway. All right, so what we're doing is really putting on a Band-Aid if you go forward, in my opinion, on some of these nonprofits. And trust me, I've worked with several nonprofits. Then there's a second question of, I have many of my friends that are business owners that are like, I don't pay my tax dollars for you to decide to go give it to a nonprofit. I make those decisions on my own. I don't pay taxes for you to go give it to somebody else that I don't want to give it to. I understand that. I see that one. I take that one to heart. And I've always been against giving funds to a nonprofit. They don't put money in. We'll never have a chance to re-get it, to pull it back out. Commercial development is where it's at. And if you look at what has happened in the North Zone, it's been huge commercial development without the assistance of tiers. We can save some of those funds to go back into commercial. I just think the number of nonprofits that might look at putting a building in the North Zone could get it. And then if you ever combine the North Zone and the South Zone, well, then you've got half of it that's already eligible. So then this argument would come up again. Well, do you extend if you combine into one zone? I'm not for that, but I could see people doing that in the next 8, 12 years. And all of a sudden, that includes Shannon Hospital, that includes the school district. It's just a snowball of future effects. We have to think 10, 15 years down the line. We just can't think today while there is a balance. My question is, if it didn't have any balance in the North Zone, would they still be coming forward saying, well, hey, you need to loosen up South funds to come help me? I don't think they would do it. I think because of the balance, we've created this issue of free money, and that's why they've asked for it. I will strongly go against ever allowing nonprofits to take money from somebody that pays taxes unless it's a voluntary donation by the person that paid the taxes. I don't know if you want to bring this back. I think we know why it's there. I missed this in my first council meeting in 2017 when Brenda took nonprofits out of the South Zone. I actually held it for the North Zone, and I should have killed it then, but it was my lack of knowledge at the time. And it's been brought up several times. I've spoke with Evelyn several times on the phone about this, and she knows my opinion. But the nonprofits that are asking for it, I don't think they have a future that's super far. I realize there's lots of nonprofits that do things for lots of people. There's churches up and down there. There's Methodist Church right there on Martin Luther King. But whether they get, and if a group of these people pulled up together to ask for money, that would just even create a bigger fight amongst the nonprofits as far as who gets what share of the money. I don't think the sustainability of nonprofits helping people relies on this decision and them being able to get tiers funds. All right, I don't. So I will base my opinion right now that I'm strongly against ever awarding any nonprofit funds out of the tiers pocketbook.
That's good to know.
Well, I've stuck with that since 17, and I don't think, and I get it, there's people that are, hey, there's some things here that could help, but the ones that are working, there are major nonprofits and foundations in this city that donate to other nonprofits to help them sustain. I don't think taxpayer funds are something that should be used there. I've always questioned whether this was legal or not, and I just, what you brought up today, Brenda, brings that forward, that there's a question about that, but it's to grow a tax base.
It's very
to grow a
clear.
taxable entity. It's not to help sustain something for a different purpose. Because I think when the commercial development comes in, that will grow everything.
Well, I would make the comment, I don't understand then why the state didn't specifically exclude nonprofits. If going with Tom's and Brenda's side of the equation, then it confuses me why the state didn't just specifically call out nonprofits are not eligible for any funding from a tiers.
I'll tell you why they probably didn't, Tommy, and it's very specific in terms of what they say. A tiers project jumpstarts development to generate new tax revenue. It's very specific about new tax revenue. Nonprofits would not be generating new tax revenue. And so by the language used of saying new tax revenue, and it says it over and over again, it's very clear. The expectation on this program is to generate new tax revenue. And specifically, as Aaron mentioned, most cities use these funds to support the city's infrastructure needs, to to change a blighted area into an area that looks like private investment might be interested in development. Frequently asked questions on Chapter 311. It's very specific. A TIF project jumpstarts development so it can start, quote, generating additional tax revenue. And it says this over and over and over again, generating new tax revenue. So by the nature of using that terminology, it's basically saying this project is to generate new tax revenue, of which nonprofits do not.
Brandon, I would appreciate in your conversations with the folks that you ultimately speak with, either be at the AG's office or the comptroller's office, why they didn't specifically exclude nonprofits. If it goes to the mayor's point that the language used implies that, but I can't believe they would eliminate with specificity something like nonprofits if their intent was to only foster brand new tax. Anyway, I'm still thoroughly confused, so I will look forward to the further conversation.
And Mayor, as we wrote the caption intentionally that for discussion and possible action. So as I mentioned, there was really kind of three choices. It really is a fourth choice of no action. There's a choice of table and bring back information, but that would be to y'all's decision of what you would want the next step. Currently in the North Tiers policies, it says nonprofits can apply. We can keep that there. We can take no action. That is for y'all's decision today on what the next steps would be for staff to go back to the Tiers Board or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I'm with Tom. It very specifically says new tax revenue. You know, when I was speaking with the various persons in Austin, they couldn't believe my question. They were like, what do you mean nonprofit? They don't bring property tax revenue. Why are you asking?
Ms. Brenda, I'll echo, I think there's a today topic and discussion and opinion throughout the board. And you know what? I think everybody needs to understand there's not a caring heart up here on this council that doesn't understand all sides. Okay, we all do. We just have our opinions on which way we should go. And mostly that's driven by fund balance. But I think the future of this has to be considered as what happens with further councils. And if somebody was to combine a zone, and then you've got nonprofits in half, and then if it turns into one zone, and while I'm against that, I'll reiterate it again, I've heard people bring that up. There are things that could just create snowballs that would allow people into this that shouldn't be. And the fact that I don't agree with several of these things, I think it should be a black and white, balls and strikes, basically outline of what allows you to get money and not get money. And I just think in the future, this thing could become very, very convoluted with a pool of nonprofits that could hold you legally feet to the fire and say, you've got to give me this much money, and then stretch on. I just think with it as it is today, you know, I would make a motion to not allow nonprofits in the North Tier zone to receive funding.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Is there a second? I'll second it.
We do have public comment, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
Mike Burnett.
You know, I got something to say about this. Mike Burnett, single member District 1, speaking in support of the item as presented. As a community action agency, CVCAA has a focus and a charge to help the entire community. While our primary focus is on alleviating the conditions and causes of poverty, we also care and support efforts all across our 11 county service area. The Tiers funding has been great at providing new opportunities and meeting challenges in our community. Businesses have been positively impacted, which in turn allows for more opportunities in San Angelo. It is important, however, to realize and recognize the valuable contributions of our nonprofit organizations. These entities work tirelessly to address the needs of our citizens, from feeding the hungry, providing educational resources, providing spiritual nourishment, and supporting mental health. By extending tax assistance funds to nonprofits, we empower these organizations to maximize their impact. This support can translate into more services delivered in a more efficient manner. It's an investment in our community's health, well-being, and future. You consider that nonprofits often transform vacant lots into community gardens, providing fresh produce, beautifying our neighborhoods, or after-school programs that keep children safe and engaged, boosting academic performance and life skills. These are not just services, they are lifelines that strengthen our very fabric of community. Yes, nonprofits don't pay property taxes, I get it. But I pay staff, those staff pay property taxes, they purchase items, they pay sales tax, and they buy services within our city, which indirectly contributes financially. While the tiers-funded upgrades are performed, when tiers-funded upgrades are performed, local businesses who do pay property taxes doing the work are positively impacted. So it's an indirect increase of the property tax. It's an increase in taxes that are collected throughout the city, not just in the tier zone. Supporting nonprofits, especially smaller nonprofits with tiers funds, is not just a financial decision. It's a strong moral choice. It reflects our community's commitment to a more equitable and compassionate community. Let's recognize that by uplifting our nonprofits, especially the small nonprofits, we uplift every resident in our city. You know, as an agency that receives $5 million in funding every year, tiers is not something I'm really interested in. Right? I get it. I doubt that Shannon would come up with I can't speak for them, but I don't see CVCAA going for this kind of money because we want to help the smaller nonprofits. We want to help the churches, the little community helpers. That's where we lie. We want to make sure that the whole community is lifted up. And then to speak on the tax funds being chosen to go where, hot funds are regularly given to nonprofits as well. And the people paying into the hotel tax aren't choosing that their money gets to support different arts. So,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Any further public comment? Evelyn? No, you didn't sign up. You can't speak. Sorry. No, not true.
They gave me the wrong information because I did sign up to speak about the animal thing. It was not on the agenda. And so I was told that this item is on the agenda, so I didn't have to sign up for it.
It's not the policy.
Change the policy because before I never
didn't.
signed up.
I don't write it's Heather.
Since October 1st, we implemented that. That's why there is a place on the public comment request form to sign up for items not on the agenda, in addition to items that are on the agenda, as Mr. Burnett did.
Any further public comment? Okay. So with that, there's a motion, there's a second. We've had public comment. We'll take a vote.
Before you do that, Mayor,
Yes, sir.
can you reiterate the motion so that the rest of us
Tom,
understand?
you want to? Yes, ma'am.
Order. But since I started this whole thing, I think I need to speak, and I'm asking you to give me
Is this legal?
3 minutes.
No, it's not legal.
It's legal, Ellen, it's not. Maybe me and you can talk afterwards. Let's not put you or me or anybody in a position to have anything. I get it. We'll
Okay,
talk
my
later.
question is, when can I talk then? If you're going to vote and shut the whole thing down, when do I get to speak?
It won't be today.
There will be a chance, maybe.
There will
Mayor-
have to be a second reading, something else, Evelyn, but
Tom?
it won't be today.
There's
Lou
some
Brandon.
discretion in the policy that the mayor, in her discretion, could allow the comment, but
I'm going to stick with Tom.
I just want to say, if we could leave it open, and I think it should be discussed again, as Mr. Tommy has said, that we should be able to do that again. We should have another opportunity. I'm sorry if I didn't read your items correctly, that you changed the policy. And when I came up to sign up, and I was told, I asked the question, this item is on the agenda, do I get to speak? I was told yes.
Thank you, Evelyn. All right, so Tom, you want to restate your motion, please?
My motion is to remove all nonprofits from the tier zone.
That is the motion.
And Tom, so that, you're intending that the current tiers incentive policy will be amended to remove all nonprofit eligibility?
Correct.
Right? Okay.
There's a motion, there's a second, there has been public comment. We'll now take a vote. We'll start with Tommy,
No,
meaning you do not support removing nonprofits.
I do, I want more I've asked for more information, I want more information. I'm not prepared to vote one way or the other, so I'm voting no.
Tom,
Yay.
Harry,
I'm with Tommy. I need more information, so I'm voting no.
I'm voting yes. Lucy,
No.
Karen.
Yes.
The motion is 1, 2, 3 yeses and 1 no vote and then 2 no votes. So,
3-3.
3-3.
We're deadlocked.
I believe it was 3-3.
3-3.
so then does the mayor make the ultimate decision?
No, ma'am.
So it's a
It does
tie
not
vote.
pass, and you can either make another motion, or you can give direction to bring it back at a later council date.
Bring it back.
Tom, what would you like to do?
This thing will be deadlocked at 3-3 all day, so I say you do what you need, send it back to the tiers board, and maybe do some discussion further with it, but at this point, it's a deadlock at 3-3.
Basically, I have
It
a
dies on
question
the
for
floor.
the other council members. If we bring it back with additional information based on what the state is telling us, which is what I'm hearing, what's legal, what's not legal, all of that kind of stuff, would it be okay to bring that back to y'all in that format instead of taking it back to the tiers board at this point? I'm
I
not
think
sure that
it
going
comes
back to the
back
tiers
here.
point
Right.
is.
Yeah,
Yes.
no,
Don't
that,
Okay,
send it
so
back to tiers.
we
just
will
bring
bring
back
it
here.
back with the information. It would be good if the three who voted, I guess Lucy, Harry, and Tommy, get with Aaron or I, telling
Okay.
us more exactly what it is you're looking for. We'll bring it back with that information.
Okay,
And then y'all can decide whether you want to take another vote.
that
or
works
not.
for me.
I want it brought back, but I'd like to have some legal opinions from the acting city attorney too. Here, I heard what the mayor said, and she's done a lot of background on this, but I'm not gonna vote one way or the other until I hear everything. Aaron, bring
And I
back.
think, based on what you've told Brandon, then we can work with that. That'll also give another opportunity for public comment at that time.
And I
Perhaps then that would allow Lucy, Harry, and myself to meet with Aaron and Brandon to ask further questions for when it comes back for the entire council and the public to hear as well.
And I just repeat what tiers means. You want to repeat or do you want me to?
What's that?
I think we heard it.
I think I'll repeat it.
Yes, ma'am.
Tax increment refinance zone, meaning incremental tax increases go into a fund. Revenue, increased revenue. Thank you.
Okay, we'll bring that back after these meet and kind of give us guidance on when you want it brought back at that time.
Okay, so now we're going to move into item C. Consider approving an infill empowerment zone request for infrastructure funding for up to 50% of the cost for the sewer main extension in an amount not to exceed $12,500 for a residential project at 1608 Prizer. Aaron?
Thank you, Mayor. This is an infill empowerment request. As you know, we do take funds out of the general fund for an infill projects. This one is for a sewer main extension. You can see here at 1608 Prizer, this property outlined in red right here on the corner of Bell Street and Prizer. They are building a single-family home. You see that there is a sewer main under Bell Street, but as we all know, Bell Street is the street that has been improved, and it is a concrete improvement for that street.
Well-done project.
Very well-done project, and we want to preserve that street pavement and not do a road cut trying to get to the sewer main in that, because that, anytime you do a road cut, that damages the road and causes problems over time. So there is this sewer main in Prizer. and they are requesting 50% funding to assist in bringing that down to their property, which really kind of would just be right there to their corner property. It would bring a sewer main in front of these other 3 properties. This is in Fort Concho East neighborhood. It's in District 3, Mr. Harry Thomas. The vision plan is neighborhood, and this is RS1 single-family residential. And again, that request is 50% funding for the sewer main extension. The cost to actually cut the street and to connect to that sewer is higher than the sewer main extension because they have to replace back that concrete and do it. And so this is actually the cheaper option for the property owner. So this is just a little bit bigger area. You can see the East Angelo draw running through there. There's a few areas that could still have some buildable houses, but extending this sewer main to the west is potentially going to allow these properties to maybe redevelop if they're vacant over time. They may have septic systems right now, or they may have just some old service lines that come in here that if we can alleviate that and get real sewer taps, that makes a big difference. So here you can see it's a small, modest house that they're proposing on that lot. I want to say it's around 1,200 square feet, but it is another single-family structure within a district that would allow that. So staff is recommending approval for the infill request for the $12,500, and that is 50% of the estimated cost to extend the sewer main. That includes the engineer's cost and the installation of the sewer main down to that property. I did check with Bob Solis and Morgan with Neighborhood Services in December, and at that time there was $112,000 left in the infill funding program for this fiscal year. So there is funding available, and we're requesting $12,500 of that.
I'd sure hate to cut through that unbelievably beautiful concrete
Yes, ma'am.
street that we just finished doing, so I certainly say yes, but Harry, it's in your district, so comment, please.
Please, have the opportunity. I've been working with this resident probably 6-8 weeks on this, so find a resolution that allows them to connect to the sewer main really makes good sense. Plus, I think there's some opportunities there for those properties to the east to develop, and so bringing that sewer main down will do it. So I recommend approval of this particular item as presented.
Thank you, and is there a second for that? Second by Tommy.
I have some questions.
Wait a sec. Sorry, honey.
I have some questions.
Sorry, Karen.
I'd
Go.
be happy to be called honey.
Sorry.
I have some questions. I'm looking at your slide, and I can see what appears to be taps, or I could in a previous slide, I could what appeared to be taps along Bell, right? We're looking at Bell.
Yes, ma'am. Those were installed when the surface was open, and so they knew there was existing taps to this existing structure here, this existing structure down here, and there may be others along Bell. So before it was paved in concrete, when they put in the new sewer main, they made those tap connections. At that time, that property was vacant, and so they did not put in a sewer tap connection at that time. And so therefore, the really only viable is to extend that sewer main to the west.
So are multiple properties that would benefit from this project?
Yes, these properties here, we believe will. Now, they may have sewer taps. We're just not aware of them based on the age of the structures that may come through this right-of-way to that main, but we have not found those. Until they go and start digging up the dirt to see what's there, then we will know that there is a possibility that they were granted septics way back, and they are on septic systems. But the intent is to get them onto the public sewer system over time as redevelopment happens.
Implies that maybe it should have been considered when the street project was underway, but that's a separate matter. So this particular property developer will bear the cost for all of those properties, basically, to have access to that tap.
Yes.
Is their cost equal to the infill benefit?
Yes, the
So
total
it's
cost is right at
$12,500.
$25,000, and so they would be paying the other cost. They actually pay it all up front, and then they get reimbursed the $12,500.
Is that a typical cost for a property developer to pay for a tap?
I don't know about a tap, but a sewer main
Or for
extension,
the sewer line extension?
which that's,
The tap is just a
Right,
piece of this.
right.
yeah, the sewer main extension, and that's the challenge because it's not adjacent to their property. So if you were thinking like a new subdivision, those new developers put in all of the infrastructure. And that's one of the challenges here is you're in an older part of town. We hope there's infrastructure, but we don't always have infrastructure. And that's one of the components of the infill program was to help pay.
And that's great. I
And now-
realize I'm just kind of discussing a separate matter. It
Yeah.
just seems like a heavy burden for that particular developer
The-
that I think probably wants to develop more if they were
Yeah.
treated well. In this neighborhood, they're interested in housing of that sort, including multifamily. Is it a particularly long line that they're going to be responsible for? What makes the cost so great?
The cost of installation,
$25,000.
the cost of installation, it's not really the materials, it's the cost of installation, how deep does it has to be, what's the engineering that has to go in to make sure that the fall is correct, you know, where does this line, what elevation under the ground does it start out, and do they have the right fall, all of those types of things that cost.
It just seems remarkably steep. I think the cost to contractors is usually not that high, but maybe I'm mistaken.
Well, when it comes to utilities, public utilities, there's, you have to be, I'm going to say the wrong word here, and Shane might be able to help me say the right word, but I'm going to say you have to be an approved installer of our city mains because there's TCEQ rules.
Is there bonding rules?
And there's bonding rules and there's things like that. And so there's only certain installers. Not, a general plumber cannot come and do the main. They can do the service line, but they can't do the main. And as y'all know, if y'all vote on many CIP projects and what it costs to put in infrastructure is a very high cost. I would say that's one of the three leading costs of housing affordability is infrastructure.
What's the status of this project at this time? Was this developer or contractor given a permit to proceed
Yes,
before
they were.
this came to us?
They were given a permit to proceed. They have, they're in construction. They are awaiting this sewer main extension to connect the sewer line. So when our staff looks at city maps, they look for adjacent utilities. And city staff are trained if there's adjacent utilities, they meet the threshold. After evaluation, and this goes to our city engineering department, after we looked at it, when they went to go do the tap, the water utilities department, they said, oh, we can't tap that street because of the cost of getting into Bell Street.
But they had already been permitted to begin their project, is that correct?
Correct, yes, because they met all the thresholds to be able to be issued a permit.
They certainly deserve the infill award. It just sounds very awkward.
And the state restricts us from only being able to contribute to 50%
Okay.
from the funds that were created for that project.
And my apologies for saying honey. It's the leftover from the holidays, right? We got to get back into the mode
Probably
of
the nicest thing
professionalism
anybody
here.
ever said to
So
me today.
my public apology
Brenda,
as a female.
You can call any of the three down here on this side, honey.
Well,
if you want
honey,
to.
thank you for that. I appreciate you opening that door for me. Thank you. Yeah. So, public apology. And Lucy, you're on.
Thank you, ma'am. Aaron, I just wanted to ask, because you said it a while ago, but I didn't hear it. What was the balance in the fund?
112,000,
Oh, okay.
There's funds.
But they can only award half of the cost.
correct, correct.
Because the idea in these infill neighborhoods is
Definitely
to
needed.
broaden the development that can happen. So we don't want to throw it at a project. We want multiple projects to be presented. Because we want, you know, you've heard me say it again, increased tax revenue. We need the funds to do the infrastructure we need and to pay for police and fire.
To be clear, I think my line of questioning was just designed to make us consider whether or not we are treating our contractors and developers with proper consideration so that we don't get the cart before the horse. We don't end up in a situation that is costly to them, that is possibly demotivational if they wish to go forward. It may make them feel disinclined. Because, as the mayor has said repeatedly, this is the kind of housing we want. And we want to encourage people to continue going with low-income housing.
And we are working with operations and public works on projects like this, that if there are lines that we would say we want to be protected or street surface that wants to be protected, we're putting a buffer that would touch those properties that is on the map that would trigger some staff to say, well, let me ask the question before a permit is issued. And so just like up here with the East Angelo Draw being floodway and floodplain, there's a buffer there that hits properties. And so when they see that, they reach out to our engineering services department and say, please evaluate this application. In this case, we're going to do that over the Bell Street area because there are some other adjacent properties that are vacant. And so if we ask that question up front, that gives that builder developer more lead time to make a decision of if that's a viable project.
Instead of allowing them to begin.
Yes, ma'am.
Go back and.
So we certainly hear that, and we want to give as much information as we can to our local folks trying to do things to help neighborhoods.
Thank you.
And to your question, honey, so the Bell Street project, had of this developer had a desire at that point in time to have developed these projects, there could have been consideration when we did Bell Street. But the horse before the cart before the horse, and that Bell Street project, I don't know, $24 million later, this project wasn't on the table at all. So it's really cart before the horse.
It goes beyond, it goes beyond my knowledge at this point, but it just seems logical that it would be proactive and sensible to make sure that those lines were available going forward. Am I making sense? So that if you're going to tear up a road, do a big $24 million project, that would be the time to say, does each cross street have access as needed for the future? Rather than, it's just prudent rather than get into a pickle like this.
I have a
My opinion.
motion and a second. Do I have a second? And a second. Public comment? None? Let's take a vote. All those in favor of approving item C on the regular agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Mayor?
That completes, yes, sir.
Aaron, may I ask a favor of you?
Yes, sir.
How long have we had this infill program? 5 years, 4 years, 6 years?
Right at 5 years, it began in 2019.
Do you have some kind of report you can give us just to see the value of the monies that we have invested and wherever they may be? Who's it gone to? Is it going to one person, whatever? But just bring us an update on that. But the reason I'm asking, for budget purposes this year, maybe it's something we need to look at increasing, or maybe it's something we need to look at decreasing. Anyway, if you can give us a report, just not in the next even 30 days, but as we start moving into budget season.
Okay.
Tommy, and really, if you drive up around the 38th, 32, 34, 38, 36 streets, and you see the new development, all those people ask for infill money. And, you know, we have asked, and COSA DC has approved the funds to reevaluate the housing study. Because some of the comments that come out are, well, there aren't available lots now. Well, there is, but some of the infill areas, there's really not a lot of available lots. But in the Lakeview area, there's still many available lots for development. And so what we want to do, and which is really important in terms of moving forward, is affordable housing is key right now. It's huge. Every city in America is looking to figure out how to create housing that's affordable relative to the incomes of the people who live in your city. And so we want to have an update based off of all the development that's already happened. What changes might have happened in that housing study relative to, have we solved anything? Do we still have big holes, the same holes we had last go around? And so what is the emphasis that we need to put on development to ensure that the future workforce has affordable housing? And we call it accessible housing. Affordable misleads people thinking it's for income, it's government. No. It's relative to income. And based off of the income level in this community, do we have accessible housing options? Because I always say the number one quality of life for everyone is that front door you walk through. Number one, housing, that front door you walk through. And are we providing the housing that this city needs for our future? And that's key. And so, yes, to your point, let's really relook at it and then decide what needs to be done, because the success has been good and development in Lakeview would have never happened without this infill program.
I look forward to whatever you can present to us, Aaron.
Sure can.
Tommy,
Thank
we'll
you.
put that in y'all's Friday packet, if that'll work as a report, and then if y'all
That's
want
fine.
more information, we can bring it.
Yeah, that's fine.
There's also an overlay in there of a map of where that's eligible.
Yeah, the 5 districts.
Yes, we can do that.
I won't see the map.
Yeah, the 5 districts.
Again, I'm in no big rush. I'd rather you have the time to dig into this, to the mayor's point just then, but to dig into this to see, maybe we need to double the money, triple the, whatever.
Michael, when is the housing study starting, and when is it anticipated to be completed?
We received the first list from the vendor last week about what they had participated in, the meetings and the documents, and we're scheduled to go over that with them this week. We're trying to get all the parties available for the meeting. But early spring is what we're shooting for.
Let's see, spring starts in March. Is there early spring, March 22nd or 21st, something like that? There's your deadline, early spring, March 21st.
We're really kind of at their
I know.
mercy.
I got it, but we need it.
I agree.
Sooner
We're trying
than
to
later.
replicate the exact same organizations, the exact same groups,
Yes,
so that we have reliable results.
yes. Thank you. Spring is coming fast. It doesn't feel like it this week, but it is. Okay, no closed sessions, so we're going to go to item 8, which is follow-up and administrative issues. Item A, nothing to discuss. Item B, consider approving various board nominations. The Civic Events Advisory Board, John Flint, SMD 1, and Laura DiCello, SMD 3, to a second term ending December 2026. Civic Service Commission, Leonard Lenny Christo, City Manager, to first term ending January 2028. Fort Concho Museum Board, Tommy Ernest, SMD 1, George Bally, SMD 2, Monty Stanley, SMD 4, and Penny Roberts, SMD 5, to a second term. Yuki Kunayuki, SMD 3, to a third term, all ending January 2027. Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, Emily Jane Cowan, SMD 1, Alicia Osanki, SMD 4, I messed that one up, to the second term
did
ending
all right.
December 2026. If
Close.
somebody can pronounce it better than I did, go right ahead. Planning Commission, Candy Pool, SMD 3, to a second term ending January 2027. Patrick Bauman, SMD 6, to non-expired term ending January 2026. Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone, Shirley Spears, SMD 4, to a second term ending July 2026.
Brenda,
Yes, sir.
I need to pull my appointment of Julie Efferson
Okay,
on the Zoning Board of Adjustment.
you got it. So then you have Mason Brooks, SMD 1, to an unexpired term ending January 2026. Richard Rivas, SMD 4, to a first full term ending January 2027. May I have, or if there's an objection, would anybody like any of these board nominations to be pulled separately and voted on separately? Tom?
Brenda, and Heather, y'all correct me if I'm wrong. I think you skipped a line. Did you announce John Austin Stokes?
Oh, I missed it. I can't even see it on here.
Mr. Stokes was removed. That was the changes that was made to this later.
Okay, so it's not on hers.
So
Okay.
it's,
You're right, you're
good.
absolutely
Okay,
right. It's
good.
left on mine.
All righty. So with that, I hear no objections, so we'll take a vote to approve all of the board nominations as just read and are on the agenda.
You need a official motion?
Yes.
And second?
Right, okay, so Tommy?
I'll move
Lucy,
approval, or
and Lucy
second, or
seconded.
whatever.
Yeah. Public comment? None. So with that, let's take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Board nominations, good to have, 6-0. With that, a motion for adjournment would be appreciated.
So moved.
Second.
Any objections? Let's take a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. It is adjourned officially at 10:23, and I will just remind everybody that the next city council meeting will be on January the 21st. Okay? We're done.